Hi, this is Kate from Generate Magic. So I want to continue the conversation on disappointment. And so disappointment when we don't get what we want or things didn't turn out as we were expecting them to. And even as I discussed in my last video, disappointment when we do get what we want, but it wasn't everything that we thought it would be. And so I used to, whenever I would feel this emotion, I would judge myself for being in lack, for not being grateful. And as you probably experienced yourself, judging yourself is not useful at all. And so I want to give you something far more useful, and first understanding exactly precisely where this disappointment comes from, and then very actionable, very simple ways that you can mitigate and dissolve the disappointment and reclaim your power. Because really that's what disappointment is it's saying that certain events have this power over you, and they have the power to either make you feel fulfilled or unfulfilled, or they have the power to make you feel happy or sad or frustrated or angry. And so it all comes back to forgetting that we're this infinite being having a human experience. And so one of the beliefs kind of attached to the emotion or the state of disappointment is this belief that this is it. So for instance, when a relationship doesn't go the way that you hoped it would be, like maybe you experience a breakup or a rejection, and then you think, I'll never experience a love like this again. Or you lose out on an opportunity, and you think, I'll never experience an opportunity like this again, like my life will just be downhill from there or from here. And I know this sounds very dramatic, but in these moments, like these are, at least for me, these are actually thoughts that have gone through my head, like in these very kind of intense, like high emotion moments. And then like I talked about, even when we do get what we want, even when we do get the gold medal, but the moment, it wasn't this euphoric, life-altering moment that we thought it would be, we ask ourselves, like, is this all there is? And two, I think, at least for myself, like having done like psychedelics and kind of having these very kind of transcendent moments and kind of constantly like chasing that high and then finding myself not being able to recapture it, definitely it can kind of lead to this feeling of emptiness or disillusionment. But again, all of this comes back to one common thread of forgetting who we are. And so the way that we remember who we are, the way that we remind ourselves that we're an infinite being having this human experience, is there's a couple of different techniques. And so Vadim Zeland in Reality Transurfing, he talks about the idea of the inner screen and the outer screen. So the inner screen is our thoughts, feelings, emotions, basically anytime that we find ourselves dwelling or ruminating or fantasizing and just kind of getting lost in our heads. And then the outer screen, whenever we're lost in the outer screen, it's wherever we're getting very reactive to circumstances, maybe reactive to things that we're seeing in the media. And so he says a very simple technique is simply to say, wake up, or I see myself, I see my reality. And that immediately puts you back in the driver's seat. It immediately puts you back in your awareness center, or I like to think of it as going back to center court in a game of tennis. And so it reminds yourself that it kind of puts you, once you become the observer of your reality, and then it kind of puts you back in the state of neutrality, where, yeah, you're no longer getting immersed in it, and you're able to kind of see everything with a greater level of detachment. And personally, a line that I like to use whenever I find myself just getting overly immersed in either the inner or the outer screen, is to ask myself who's in charge. In other words, like, who's in charge? Are the conditions, the thoughts, the feelings in charge? Or am I, as my I am awareness, as the, again, this greater spiritual infinite being, am I in charge? And just asking myself that question immediately just kind of snaps me back into my awareness center. And it's kind of like too, I like to think of it as zooming out. And so when you're looking at everything from like the bird's eye perspective, and just kind of like when you're in an airplane and you're looking down at the landscapes, and you can see just the beautiful, like, divine perfection of everything. Everything is yeah, just perfectly orchestrated. And but then when you're down on the ground, everything just looks very messy and chaotic. And that's exactly the way our reality works as well. And so when we're seeing everything kind of from this divine spiritual perspective, we're able to see the beauty and the divine orchestration behind all the seeming chaos. And also, this kind of brings me to my next technique, is telling yourself, like, this kind of goes back to this idea, like, this is it. Like, thinking that because something didn't go your way, that your life is over and it's all just going to be downhill from here. And so telling yourself, no, I'm starting the next chapter. And starting the next chapter is one of those phrases, like, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, which I talked about in another video. One of these phrases we hear so often, it kind of starts to lose its meaning, but it's very profound when you think about it. And then me starting the next chapter reminds me that I'm in this, that the story is constantly unfolding, and that the story's never really over unless you say it's over, right? And really, it's a never-ending story. A wonderful movie, by the way, The Never-Ending Story, but it's a never-ending story, and it's constantly evolving. And so the more we can see it that way, the more it just gives us this level of healthy detachment. And this whole idea of disappointment kind of starts to fade away, because we're no longer putting so much weight on any particular experience. Again, whether it's a relationship, whether it's money, whether it's a business opportunity, because we're recognizing that as these infinite beings, we thus have infinite opportunities to have these magical moments, right? And that it's all constantly evolving and unfolding, and there really is no end-all be-all. It's just on and on and on, forever and ever. And I also kind of like to think of it as especially we see this a lot like in the sci-fi and fantasy genres, like Harry Potter, Star Wars. There's just infinite sequels and prequels and spin-offs, and people, taking a specific character from the series, and then the character has their own story. And there's just like infinite places that you can take it. And so the more and then even if a character dies in a particular series, you might see the character appearing in another series or in a spin-off. And so it just, to me, this is just a powerful reminder of we really are just having this infinite experience, and even death on this physical realm is not the end-all be-all. And so having this higher perspective really kind of, again, just removes like any sense of disappointment, and also the fear of disappointment as well. Once we recognize that it's always like every moment is an opportunity to live our best lives, and really just have this magical experience and just continue to constantly evolve. And so just remember that the story is always unfolding. And anytime you find yourself getting lost in the story and forgetting that you're the writer and the director of the story, just ask yourself who's in charge. And that will immediately remind you of who you are. So with that, thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.